Don't misconstrue the title, I will explain, I promise. Hi, my name is Matthew, and you might know me as BLACKBoy on TikTok, it's BLACKBoy on Twitter, BLAC_Matt_ on Instagram, or you might not know me at all. And for those of you who don't, I am a content creator that talks all things World of Wonder and Drag Race, especially that of Drag Race outside of the US. And today, for my 15th video ever, I want to talk about the recent cast reveal of Crave Original Canada's Drag Race Canada vs. the World Season 2, a title that somehow feels longer than the entire duration of Season 14. And there's a lot to discuss. On Monday, June 23rd, 2024, the Crave Canada and Canada's Drag Race social media accounts teased the return of Canada vs. the World, with a brief teaser trailer that showed small snippets of each of the queens' promo looks, and announcing that the Meet the Queens would drop that Wednesday, June 26th. Now, obviously, as is with every season of Drag Race, especially that of an all-star season of Drag Race, the teaser fostered a healthy excitement within the fandom, primarily because nobody expected it to drop so soon. In comparison, Canada vs. the World Season 1 didn't announce its cast until October of 2022, a fourth quarter season of Drag Race if I've ever heard it. With Season 2, however, we got its cast reveal in June, a whole 4 months earlier than that of Season 1. So with this pleasant surprise, the fandom quickly shifted in their seats, ready to be introduced to a new group of global glamazons. Although it should be noted that many of them kept their guard up because, well, Canada vs. the World isn't really well known for its diversity in franchise representation. One of the primary criticisms of Season 1 was just that there were simply not enough global franchises that were casted, with only 4 franchises represented on the 9-person cast. Moreover, what's worse is that all 4 of those franchises were English franchises. Canada, US, UK, and Down Under. In a season marketed as Versus the World, there wasn't much world to be found. In fact, some people dubbed it Canada versus the Commonwealth, which got a good laugh out of me. This was a huge letdown, especially when you consider that Canada vs. the World came out after the first season of UK vs. the World, which launched with 5 franchises represented, 2 of which were produced not primarily in English. And since many fans considered Canada vs. the World to be the follow-up, the sequel, it was quickly perceived as a quote-unquote downgrade, simply because the show didn't bother casting queens from beyond a handful of franchises, and furthermore, none from non-English franchises. Now, I do think that the season turned out pretty good. Now, okay, it might have had something to do with the fact that it finished airing right around the holiday season of 2022, so the vibes were already high, and therefore, my memories of it may just be a little more nostalgic than anything. But Canada vs. the World 1 is one of the most feel-good shows I've ever watched, especially when it comes to Drag Race. I sometimes rewatch episodes when I'm in a poor mood to just lift my spirits up, you know what I mean? The only issue was the casting. Obviously, not referring to the cast itself, because those queens are iconic, but there were just so few international girls. Oh, by the way, for the sake of clarity in this video, when I say international girls, the collective group that I'm referring to are Drag Race alum from non-Ru, non-English franchises. So, yeah. But anyways, when Canada vs. the World got renewed for a second season, the primary request of the fans was to cast from more franchises around the world. España, Italia, Brazil, Mexico, anywhere. The argument gained even more traction when we saw history repeat itself. Can you hear the construction? In January of this year, what are they doing out there, divas? Because it's a Sunday. Like, it's Sunday. Who's doing construction work right now? Go home, Lucy LaDuca. Where was I? In January of this year, the cast of UK vs. the World Season 2 revealed itself, boasting 7 whole franchises in its 11-person cast, 4 of which were from countries where the primary language was not English. This was a huge jump from the original cast of season 1, which granted I know only was an additional 2, but 2 more cast members makes a world of a difference in a setting like Versus the World. We had hoped that at the very least, Canada versus the World season 2 would follow suit. And, to me, it didn't have to make the jump from 9 queens to 11, sure, but get 1 or 2 more franchises in there. You can do it, I believe in you. And finally, June 26th rolls around, hopes are high, and let's talk. Also, I took the bass off of my microphone. I didn't know it could come off, and so now I'm just holding it, and it's wired, so I feel like I'm on the Sonny and Cher show, you know what I mean? I feel like a 70s pop star singing a song. For those of you not in the know, the Canada versus the World Season 2 cast consists of 9 queens. Miss Fiercalicious, Tynomi Banks, and Lemon representing Canada, Alexis Mateo, Eureka, and Kennedy Davenport representing the US, Cheryl Hole and LaPhil representing the UK, and last but certainly not least, La Kahena representing France. And before I say anything, congratulations to all the girls, truly. Now, in its own right, I love these queens, and am ecstatic to see them back. How can I not be excited to see Alexis Mateo, to see Tynomi Banks, Lemon, Kennedy, Miss Fiercalicious, and of course Kahena, because I met her in person, and that's oomph. Bonjour Kahena, je t'aime. So please don't get that twisted with what I am about to say. But, despite my love for these queens, I have to ask, and based on the introduction in this video, I'm sure you know where I'm going, but I have to ask, where is the world? Canada versus the World disappointed Drag Race fans anywhere by announcing a cast that, in its entirety, consists of only 4 franchises represented. Again, which really just stifled and floundered any pre-season buildup there might have been before the cast was officially revealed. At the time of season 1, sure, you could argue that there were fewer countries to choose from. I believe that season started filming in April of 2022, and by that time there were only 7 franchises that had premiered. But in 2024, cover your eyes, throw a dart at a map, and the country that dart lands on probably has a franchise of Drag Race. A whole smorgasbord to choose from, honestly. Now, in their oh my god, I'm so pale. Now, in their defense, one of the franchises they did cast from is a non-English franchise, with La Kahena hailing from France. And that, in and of itself, is more than Canada versus the World 1 can ever attest to. The most out-of-left-field franchise they casted from on that season was Down Under, you know what I mean? But still, for this season, in my opinion, they had room for 1, maybe 2 more queens from around the world, so that at the very least, they can show a quantifiable growth from their first venture. Again, I'm not saying that they had to increase their cast size. I understand that the streaming service that hosts the show and the production company behind it only allots a certain amount of episodes ahead of time, and that can really constrain how many queens you can cast. But on that note, I think with so few spots, they should have reserved another one for a second queen outside of the Commonwealth. I truly believe that 1 additional franchise would have made all the difference. I really do. Now, I recognize in making that statement that does mean that 1 spot should be sacrificed. And just to be frank, I am not going to sit here and ponder on who would have or could have not been here if their spot went to an international girl, because I don't think that's fair and it's not my place to do so. But, on that note, and as a brief aside, I do want to point out one thing about this cast that I found interesting, yet I don't really see many people talking about. There are just as many American reps as there are Canadian reps. Both Canada's Drag Race and Drag Race US have 3 queens representing them in this season. While with every season of Versus the World prior, the host country had more. UK with 3 and 4 respectively, and Canada with 4 on its first season. And that made sense, right? Though the host country had the highest number for their individual franchise, they still held a minority in their cast overall. So they either had to band together on a united front, or align themselves with different countries to not be snuffed out. And so that sort of created the X country versus the world intrigue, right? So it's kind of weird this go around when Canada doesn't have the most members competing, and instead feels smothered because there's just so many US queens compared to before. So all of that to say that if I had to give up one spot for an international girl to be on, it probably would be one of the US spots. Now, I can see two arguments being made that can justify why so few franchises populate Canada versus the world. The first of which is, well, some international girls, if they want to come back at all, probably want to be judged by RuPaul. For example, on her episode of Give It To Me Straight with Maddie Morphosis, Envy Peru, the winner of Drag Race Holland Season 1, revealed that not only did she get a call for Canada versus the world, but outright declined for that exact reason.
Is it true that you turned down a chance to be on Canada versus the world?
Yes.
What was your
did.
reasoning for that?
Well, World of Wonder called me, and I said, well, if I'm going to go back on Drag Race or whatever season, I want to do it in front of RuPaul.
And this is a very fair and honest argument that I don't really have a counter for. After all, RuPaul is the figurehead of the Drag Race brand, spending decades cultivating a career and iconography within pop culture that goes beyond the world of drag itself. The television shows, the publicity focus, the no, not that. The point is that RuPaul is the queen of drag, and whether you like it or not, her franchises of Drag Race are the most successful. Well, with the exception of Down Under, probably. Drag Race US and Drag Race UK are the biggest engines for cultural juggernauts within the fandom, and in some cases outside of the fandom. And unfortunately, Canada's Drag Race just doesn't have that same reach. Now, that's not to say there haven't been huge success stories from that franchise. Priyanka, for example, is probably one of the biggest names out there right now. But my point is, there are less eyes on Canada's Drag Race than there are on Drag Race US or Drag Race UK. Therefore, less likelihood that your career would take off if you choose to participate in Canada versus the world. Though, to be fair, I still would probably rank it as like the third most popular franchise. So it's no wonder that international queens would want to compete on a franchise hosted by Ru to A, meet the queen of drag, Avi, and B, for the most likely opportunity to have a career launch pad. So, like I said, I don't really have a good counter argument to that one. Though I still believe there is a healthy population of international Drag Race alum that would be interested in competing in Canada versus the world. For example, Margaret Icha from Drag Race Mexico campaigned hard to be on the season. It was very publicly open about her interest. I recognize that at some points that was probably a joke, but I do think that came from a place of earnestness. Sort of like an LOL, just kidding. Unless, like that sort of thing. And that leads me into the second argument that I see posted by lots of people online, which is that the Canadian visa is notoriously difficult to get. Which, yes, I understand, because I myself have once or twice thought about moving to Canada, and even beginning the visa process was incredibly overwhelming. So the point being that international queens, even if they are interested in competing on Canada versus the world, the visa application would be a major roadblock. But my assumption would be that the queens wouldn't have to do it themselves. My assumption would be that Crave, Blue Ant Studios, World of Wonder, whomever, would help streamline the process for its queens, right? With brands and private businesses as big as them, my assumption would be that they would have an on-hand legal team that would minimize the bureaucratic headache of acquiring a visa for its contestants. But so far, it doesn't seem like that. So far, it seems like Crave, Blue Ant, and World of Wonder are not putting in the extra effort of obtaining a visa for the queens at hand. Or maybe they are putting in the extra effort and are just giving up when the process becomes too complex and takes up too much time. But dare I say that if it is that difficult to acquire a Canadian visa, so difficult that you can't show a little extra initiative to secure one for your international queens, then just don't do Canada versus the world at that point. Just do Canada All-Stars. Now, I don't want to speak for the queens around the globe, but to me, as a viewer, it seems like a slap in the face to the international girls when you as a brand, as a production company, produce a show called Versus the World, but then do not prioritize securing a visa for the world. You know what I mean? Now, again, I want to emphasize that these are not criticisms that are directed to the queens on Canada versus the World too. And I want to clarify that I do not think that Crave or WoW should have ripped this opportunity from one of the queens that are already there, because I love these queens. But it's pretty disheartening when these shows, actually I shouldn't say these shows, because UK versus the World has done a pretty good job. It's disheartening when this show, when Canada versus the World in particular, brands itself as a global platform but doesn't endeavor beyond the host country, the United States, and a little bit of Europe. I guess what I'm trying to say in this video is that I think there is so much gorgeous, iconic talent in so many different franchises across Drag Race. And I suppose that's why I try to dedicate my channel and my content to it. And I truly think that if given the opportunity, they can bring show-stopping drag to a platform like Canada's Drag Race. I just believe that World of Wonder needs to take the time to put in a little extra effort to give them that opportunity, because I promise the fans will reciprocate. But who knows? This is all speculation. For all I know, they could have called every single queen from every single franchise around the world, and they all could have said no. I won't ever know until I'm in the production room of World of Wonder Studios over in Los Angeles. Or maybe the Crave studio in Toronto. I don't know who makes the call. Probably World of Wonder, though. So take this all with a grain of salt. And again, for the third time, I want to remind people that I don't want this video to be used as a vehicle for hate to any of the 9 amazing artists that are participating. It's wonderful that they're all coming back to give us another season of their drag. But rather, I want this video to be ideally used as a mobilization for Canada versus the World, if they ever get renewed for a 3rd season, to show more grace to the queens around the world from outside the RuPaul franchises, from outside the English-speaking franchises. But the producers probably don't watch my videos, so that's probably going to go nowhere. Anyways, congratulations to all the queens of Crave Original Canada's Drag Race Canada vs. the World Season 2. I'm so looking forward to what talent, to what artistry, to what drama you will bring to the season. But, as always, please remember that I am just a gay person talking on the internet.